Mm-hmm. All right, so earlier we talked about the APR. So I also want to shed some light on two different types of credit as we advance that discussion on APR as a benchmark for understanding the true cost of credit. Credit really ultimately comes in two varieties, either an installment loan, which you can think of like a bucket of money, and you borrow a certain amount of money and then you pay back the loan over the life of the loan with a slightly bigger bucket. The difference being the amount, the principal that you borrowed, plus let's call it the finance charge on top of that. So you're probably going to require a bigger bucket to pay back the original bucket that you borrowed versus a revolving line of credit, which you can think of like this screenshot of a homemade water wheel for generating electricity using the water from what looks like a creek, a natural creek, I presume. Well, the water flows in and you use it, and it just turns in a circle. And in theory, people with credit cards, for example, which is the revolving line of credit, most of you will end up uh, earning some familiarity to throughout your lives before anything else, before something like a line of credit, which for simplicity we'll say is like a credit card, but without the piece of plastic, but a little bit more to it than that. But think of a credit card. In theory, you use the money that you borrow on the credit card and then you pay it back at the end of the month and then you just keep turning it over. And that's why previously when I discussed the 5 C's of credit, I mentioned one sort of rule of thumb is to use no more than 80% of your credit limit on the credit card. The psychology and discipline required to manage revolving lines of credit doesn't always match the theory behind how useful it could be for a lot of people in their lives. But managed well, it's not a terrible idea and is one building block that a lot of people use to start building credit for that matter. That said, most consumer loans, meaning installment loans, and specifically for consumers, but could be for businesses, will use what's called the add on method. And the add on method is spelled out algebraically as follows, but that probably looks like Greek. So, just like the legend on a map, let's spell that out such that M is the number of payment periods in 1 year, and N is the number of scheduled payments. C is the finance charge in dollars, dollar cost of credit, and P, which is the principal, the original proceeds, which is just another way of saying the principal. So imagine, for example, a business owner could be a person. This is a textbook example from the art of mathematics in business. Imagine a business owner borrows $1,000 to be repaid in 12 equal monthly installments of $93 each for a finance charge of $116. So again, here's our add-on method. And what we're doing is 2 times M, which was the number of monthly payments. So that's 12, $116, just like it says up here is the finance charge. It's highlighted, divided by 1,000, which is P, the principal or the original proceeds, times N plus 1. N was, again, just 12 plus 1, literally, just the number of payments that you're making, which was the same thing here. And then that breaks down to 2,784. You'll notice in the denominator that we're using the distributive property in arithmetic and in algebra. So you could multiply 12 by 1,000 and then 1,000 by 1 and then add them together, or just add 12 plus 1, which is 13, and multiply that by 1,000. Either way, you'll get 13,000 if we put that in our calculators and turn it into a percentage and round up to 2 decimal places, we'll get 21.42%. So that would be the APR. But wait, you say, where does this finance charge come from? And that's an excellent question. You do want to make sure that you always watch out for hidden fees. Now, in the case of this textbook example, we pull up our trusty calculator and we take $93 times 12. That's $1,116. Recall the bucket that we pay back the loan of $1,000 with is going to be that $1,000 plus the finance charges. So you need a slightly bigger bucket to pay back the original bucket that you paid for in this metaphor, so to speak. So $1,116 minus $1,000, which was the original proceeds, the principal. Obviously, that's simple arithmetic, so that just equals $116. That's the finance charge. But the real question is, where did, where and how is that quote unquote finance charge computed? And obviously, notwithstanding some of the examples I went through before, in the real world, the finance charge isn't always calculated in such a simple, straightforward fashion. So, this article that I'm reading to you, and I'll include a link to the article in the description of the video and also on Teams for my students. But it's more or less inside baseball from someone who works at a dealership talking about some of the nefarious, meaning shenanigans, meaning that's an old person word as well, but meaning shady behavior on the part of some folks in the industry. So he says, let's see, one of the legal attacks asserts that some part of the cash price of goods sold in a credit transaction is in reality a finance charge. Two types of dealerships are at risk here. Dealerships who sell cars or RVs on at a big markups and on credit, and then hold and collect payments from buyers. That's so-called buy here, pay here dealers, and dealerships who sell their contracts to finance companies who charge an acquisition fee, so quote unquote acquisition fee, or who pay less for the contracts than the amount financed. So talk about a shell game, when these dealers sell goods on credit and charge prices for those goods that the dealers do not charge when selling like goods for cash, they are hiding part of the finance charge in the goods cash price. But say, my dealer friends, what does it matter? The buyer would pay the same amount over the term of the contract, whether the amount the goods price is inflated goes into the cash price or is included in the finance charge. Well, that puts the finger on the problem. Federal law, specifically the Federal Truth in Lending Act, requires that dealers selling goods on credit disclose the finance charge as a finance charge, including the finance charge in the cash price, meaning not credit, violates the Truth in Lending Act disclosure requirements. But say, my dealer friends, that's just a technical violation, man. How much can that cost me? Well, according to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, for one Colorado dealer who violated that, according to the feds anyway, they violated it. It cost them a whopping $700,000. So, if you're in the business of lending, that's probably a risk you don't want to take. However, as a consumer, and that would also include a business person, a potential entrepreneur down the road, maybe, and you're shopping for a loan, you're a consumer in that capacity. You don't want to take the risk that there aren't hidden fees, so always be on the lookout. But also know the inside straight on the art of mathematics in business, too.